Welcome to the 45th meeting of the Fair Employment and Housing Council. The meeting is being called to order. I'll have my colleague, Rachel Langston, conduct the roll call.
Thank you. Chair Sandoval?
Present.
Councilmember Iglesias?
Present.
Councilmember Olude?
Present.
Councilmember Brodsky?
Present.
Councilmember Hong?
Present.
Councilmember Walensky?
Present.
Apologies, just a moment. Councilmember Iglesias?
Present.
Councilmember Scher? Director Kish?
Present.
Thank you. This meeting is being webcast live via Zoom video conference, and the video of this meeting will also be available afterwards on the DFEH website and DFEH YouTube channel. We also have closed captioning available for participants, which can find at the bottom of the Zoom bar features. If you're having difficulty accessing closed captioning, you can chat with the administrator to resolve this issue. Members of the public who are participating remotely in today's proceeding might have noticed that you are currently muted and your video is disabled at this time. However, please be advised, as in all of our previously held remote and in-person meetings, there will be opportunities for public comment and participation throughout the meeting as we address each of our agenda items. We have a number of ways for you to provide input and comments. Number one, you can email the council at fehcouncil@dfeh.ca.gov. We will be checking this email account throughout the meeting, and your comments will be read aloud and considered by the council members. Alternatively, you can use the Zoom chat feature to send a message directly to the meeting administrator, who can read your comment out loud. Or three, if you would like to speak directly rather than through your written text, please click raise hand in Zoom or press *9 if you called in. If you would like to rename yourself in the Zoom list of participants, you can find yourself on the list and click rename and in the list of options next to your name. Department staff members, we would like to acknowledge you here, including Kevin Kish, who has already been introduced, Adam Romero, DFEH's Deputy Director of Executive Programs, and our new colleague, Rachel Langston, Senior Fair Employment and Housing Council. Rachel, if you would like to introduce yourself, that would be great. Rachel?
Thank you very much. Yes, hello everyone. I am excited to be administrating my first meeting. I come to DFEH from legal aid at work, where I spent about 13 years doing a mix of different types of employment related advocacy, including some policy work, and I'm excited to work with the council and with the department as a whole on their legislative and regulatory work. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you for all of you who are attending. Want to review the agenda. Copies of the agenda and meeting materials can be accessed at the council's page of the DFEH website, which is the same page that the Zoom video conference link can be found. Highlights of today's meeting will include Department of Fair Employment and Housing report from our director, Kevin Kish, consideration of changes without regulatory effect to the California Family Rights Act regulations, and updates from the council's subcommittees. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from our last meeting, which can be found in attachment A. Do any of the council members have comments or edits regarding the minutes from our last meeting?
I have a small comment in section 9A, which is the update from the Criminal History and Employment Regulations Subcommittee.
Okay.
I'd like to request changing the phrase proposed modifications to say proposing modifications, as no modifications have yet been proposed. Thanks.
Any other comments or edits from my fellow council members? Okay. Do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Okay. Can I have a motion with the amendments made by our Councilmember Julie Walensky?
I move.
Second.
Great. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Sandoval,
Aye.
Councilmember Brodsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Hong,
Aye.
Councilmember Iglesias,
Aye.
Councilmember Olude,
Aye.
Councilmember Walensky,
Aye.
Councilmember Scher.
Thank you, Rachel. We'll next move on to our next agenda item, which is any council member reports. Do any council members want to report on any item? Okay. We're moving forward to the next agenda item. We will have Director Kish provide a report. Director Kish?
Thank you, Chair Sandoval, and hello, everyone. I also want to thank and welcome Rachel. We're so thrilled that she's joined our team. Just a couple quick items from the department side. In the last month, as many of you may have seen, we launched an affirmative enforcement campaign on the California Fair Chance Act, which is the law that seeks to reduce barriers to employment for people with criminal histories. And this effort is, part of it is using technology to conduct online searches of advertisements for statements that might violate the law. And it also includes a new toolkit of resources for employers to assist them in complying with the law, including sample letters and forms. And I wanted to highlight this because much of this work stems from the work of this body, and in particular, the hearing that we held almost exactly a year ago, I believe on November 17th, 2020, on the Fair Chance Act. And so I want to thank you, the council members, and the stakeholders who addressed us during that meeting, many of whose recommendations are being carried forward in this enforcement effort. I wanted to highlight really quickly a new guidance document that DFEH issued last month for businesses or places of public accommodation about civil rights and COVID-19 safety measures under the Unruh Civil Rights Act, which, as you all know, incorporates the Americans with Disabilities Act into state law. This document adds to the pandemic guidance that DFEH has produced over the past year in the context of employment, housing, and healthcare, now public accommodations or business settings. It's available on our website, and I encourage folks to check it out. And then finally, I just wanted to mention and congratulate our former colleague, Holly Thomas, on her nomination by President Biden to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Judge Thomas was our colleague here at DFEH and on the council and worked closely with many of our stakeholders. So we congratulate her and look forward to her confirmation by the Senate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kish. Next, we'll move to the next agenda item, which will be consideration of changes without regulatory effect to the California Family Rights Act regulations. And I'll turn that over to our colleague, Councilmember Brodsky.
Yes, hi. You're in your packet. You've got the changes that were made without regulatory effect by subcommittee, which at this point is just me. But I want to point out what the changes are and why. This year, effective January 1st, 2022, to the definition of parent will be added parent-in-law, so that in CFRA, so that the family members that an employee may request a CFRA leave for, and now will include parent-in-law. Previously, parent-in-law had been included as a definition, but it hadn't been clearly stated that parent-in-law was one of the covered types of, one second, I'm sorry, my phone is barking at me, was not one of the considered part of one of the family members covered. Now it is. So what we did was we just are making the regulations conform, so there's no regulatory effect. But what we did was add parent-in-law, and I'll refer you to pages 5 and 6 first of the regulations. So we added parent-in-law to the list of who is considered a parent, and that was what had been omitted. We deleted the specific sentence at the end, which said parent does not include a parent-in-law, which was what the regulation previously had said. And then in Q, we defined what a parent-in-law is, conforming it to the statute. So there's no regulatory change in any of that. In addition, what we did in these regulations without regulatory effect is that we had, in a previous iteration of the regulations, we had inadvertently left a couple of references to the New Parent Leave Act, which is no longer in existence. And so we just omitted the 2 references to that. As you know, CFRA now covers employers with 5 or more employees. And NPLA previously there had been a distinction between CFRA and NPLA. Now it's all one. And the final change that we did, which also has no regulatory effect, was to make sure that the notice that employers receive or have to post and the certification forms include parent-in-law. So none of that has any regulatory effect. We're not changing anything except to conform it to the statute. So I would ask to make a motion. Well, is there any public comment on that? Or any
If any council members have any comments or any questions you would like to have asked, Councilmember Hong?
Thank you for this, Councilmember Brodsky. I just was wondering, in section Q, why in parent-in-law, when you define it, you actually include parent-in-law. So that wasn't necessarily included in the government code. So I wasn't sure if that was a specific reason for that. Otherwise, you're using the term in the definition.
I think that's a mistake, and I think that was just an inadvertent. I think it was included inadvertently. You're right. It doesn't make logical sense there to have that be there. So I would suggest that we modify that slightly and take that out. It's redundant.
Thank you. Otherwise, yeah.
I don't think that needs to change. That's a good thing. I'm glad you caught that.
If I may, Councilmember Brodsky, just to explain, because we're conforming to the statute and because the statutory definition of parent includes parent-in-law, we just incorporated the statutory definition as it currently exists. It is a little circular, but because these are changes without regulatory effect, it made most sense to conform to the statute.
I think you're using the word conform. You mean to duplicate the statute, to reiterate the same verbiage. So I think whether it's included or we take it out, we're still absolutely not making any changes to the statute. But what do you think, Adam? Do you think it should stay in?
I think that was our original thinking, that to the route that the council is taking to approve these regulations, that it made the most sense to conform, to be consistent with the statutory definition of parent. But of course, the council can approve a different definition and see if the Office of Administrative Law approves this change.
Adam, can I ask you a quick question? I think the part that Councilmember Hong is looking at is not the definition of parent, but the definition of parent-in-law.
In Q.
In Q. And is the Is there a definition of parent-in-law in the statute? I forget.
Yes, there is, and that did
Oh.
not change. That part was there before, and what it says is parent-in-law means the parent of a spouse or domestic partner. That's the definition. So that
I
hasn't changed.
see. Okay.
So I here defining, I think that what Adam is referring to is the definition of parent in the statute. Parent means a biological foster or adoptive parent, a parent-in-law, a step parent, a legal guardian, or other person who stood in loco parentis to the employee when the employee was a child. That's the new definition. So I think, I think we're still making, still not making any kind of regulatory change. It would still has no regulatory effect if we by taking out parent-in-law to mean parent-in-law.
Under Q, you mean?
Under Q.
Yes, yes. My issue is only with Q. But I would defer if I'm mistaken.
Any other discussion? Adam or Kevin on this item?
I just wanted to add that I agree with council members Brodsky and Hong. I think it's better for clarity that we remove parent-in-law from the definition of parent-in-law.
Thank you, Councilmember Liddy.
And I
Anyone else?
don't see, I don't see how it's making any change from the statute. It's not having any regulatory effect. It's just not having a circular definition. But if you agree, if you disagree and think otherwise, I also will defer.
Any other discussion on this? Is it your sense, Councilmember Brodsky, that it's removal from this particular definition under Q will not have any regulatory effect?
That's my hope. That's my understanding of it. But if there's a different view on it that it does, I'd like to hear it.
Do any of the council members have a different view? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Let me just think it through one more time.
Okay.
I think on balance, I think we should leave it in. I do think it can be read in a way that isn't, I tend to see it as duplicative, but I can see where it could be read not that way. So a parent-in-law means a spouse's parent-in-law. So, and so I, in that sense, and in trying to keep it consistent with the wording in the statute as to what a parent is, and a parent-in-law, I think we should just keep it in.
Okay. Any additional discussion by council members? Any others? Okay. Rachel, do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment on this item.
Okay, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
In a second?
A second.
Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Chair Sandoval.
Aye.
Councilmember Brodsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Hong,
Aye.
Councilmember Iglesias,
Aye.
Councilmember Olude,
Just to clarify, this is moving to keep
That
the
is
text
correct.
as is, Q as is.
That is correct, council member.
Aye.
Councilmember Scher, Councilmember Walensky.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Next, we'll move on to an update from the Reasonable Accommodations for Associational Disabilities Subcommittee. That's Councilmember Adil Brodsky and Councilmember Alude.
The Reasonable Accommodations for Associational Disabilities Subcommittee doesn't have anything to report now. The department has information they'd like to share, but no new information to report.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brodsky, anything to add?
No, I don't.
Any discussion by our fellow council members? Okay, Rachel, any public comment?
Apologies, just a moment.
Okay.
There's no public comment on this matter.
Thank you, Rachel. Next item on the agenda is update from the Criminal History and Employment Regulations Subcommittee. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Walensky.
Thank you, Chair Sandoval. The subcommittee is continuing to research and consider proposing modifications to the criminal history and employment regulations.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any discussion items from fellow council members?
I apologize, Chair Sandoval. It looks like there was a hand raised. I'm not certain if it was for the last item. But
Okay,
is it all right to do public comment on that item?
that's fine.
Grace Ramos has her hand raised.
Ms. Ramos, go ahead. Is she unmuted?
I've requested that she unmute. Oh, here we go. Yes.
Ms. Ramos, go ahead.
Disregard, please.
Hi, Ms. Ramos, we can hear you now.
Disregard, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so do we have any public comment on the Criminal History and Employment Regulations Subcommittee?
Yes, we have one public comment from Joshua Kim.
Joshua Kim, okay.
Yes. All right.
Morning.
Mr. Kim, go ahead, we can hear you.
Good morning. I'm the Director of Litigation at a Root and Reentry. It's a nonprofit located in California, headquartered in Oakland. We handle a lot of complaints regarding the Fair Chance Act from our offices across the state. And we submitted a written public comment last night. Given the shortness of the notice of hearing, we scrambled to put it together and we were able to submit it last night. So I hope that the council has a copy of it. And I'll simply summarize here that the Fair Chance Act has a lot of promises, but when it comes to enforcement of its promises, we have experienced a situation where even a person with a 40-year conviction, 3 decades old conviction, is denied employment, and the department finds no evidence of violation of the Fair Chance Act. And we wanted to raise a possibility here that the department interpret the regulation and the Fair Chance Act language in a way that actually does give meaning to the purpose of the Fair Chance Act. And the detail of that proposal or that recommendation is in the written comment that we submitted last night. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will confirm that comment was received.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Any additional comment, Rachel?
I do not believe there's any additional comment on this matter. No, there's not.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to move forward to the next agenda item, which is update from Government Code Section 1135, or with our council member, Dale Brodsky.
Yes, Council Member Sure and I have been working on these proposed regulations, or they're draft regulations, I should say, since 2017. So I understand why there's a feeling that people have that we'd like to see something to be able to present to the council. Suffice it to say that they are under review by the administration, and while I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you, I am hopeful that at some point you may see them and we can get them to the public for public comment.
Any discussion by fellow council members? Any public comment, Rachel?
There's no public comment on this matter.
Okay. Thank you. We're moving to the next agenda item, which is a subcommittee regarding hate violence. Members who are Dale Brodsky and I also serve on the subcommittee. I'll give a report. We have looked at additional ways within our jurisdiction to provide educational outreach and other types of avenues to address issues of hate incidents in the state of California. We are recommending, Councilmember Brodsky and I, that the council send a letter to law enforcement agencies throughout the state, as well as to DAs and city attorney's office to deal with misdemeanors, because we know that there are situations where individuals who have been subjected to hate incidents go to law enforcement, but for whatever reason, based on the facts, there's no movement in terms of criminal prosecution. But I think it is important for law enforcement entities to be mindful and understand that there are other ways that these individuals can address any issues they face with hate incidents, including going to the DFEH and see if there are ways that they could have their issues addressed under the Ralph Act. So that's something that we are recommending that the council issue a letter in that regard to be drafted. We're also meeting with different organizations to think through how we can work more collaboratively. So for example, we will be meeting with Stop AAPI Hate in the next couple of weeks to examine other ways that we could put out materials collectively with the DFEH department on ways that community members can address concerns that they have in these particular occasions where there may be hate incidents or violence. Councilman Brodsky, do you like to add anything?
I would just like your authorization to go ahead and draft a letter to send to law enforcement. As Council Member Sandoval said, to alert them to the fact that even though there may not be a criminal prosecution, they do have other venues, including DFEH, to which they can take their complaints. And so is that okay with you, fellow council members?
I think that's a great idea to send a letter to law enforcement and prosecutors and DAs. I'd make a small recommendation that the letter include an attachment, which would be like a flyer or a notice that they can literally hand to people who make complaints, rather than trusting them or relying on them to be able to articulate, well, maybe there's some civil thing you could do, that you actually give them as an attachment to this letter, something that they could hand out to people.
That's a great idea.
I'm sorry, you cut out, council member. What did you say? Okay, I think we're having that. Councilman Brodsky, you wanted to say something?
My connection's unstable.
Okay.
My connection's unstable. I didn't hear that. Did did the council authorize us to, and as I said, council members, this suggestion sounds really good to me to attach a flyer. I was wondering if DFEH already has a flyer.
So the question is whether DFEH already has a flyer that can be attached that identifies ways that individuals can access the grievance process or the complaint process through DFEH.
Yes, the department does have a fact sheet on hate violence resources available from the department, and Councilmember Brodsky and Sandoval, I will connect you with our outreach and education team to ensure that these efforts are synced up. And I'll also just, since I have the microphone, as it were, just also update that the department has received an appropriation from this year's budget to create a multi-year hotline so that victims of hate violence can access appropriate resources within and outside of state government. The department is currently creating a senior position within the department to lead this effort. And so for those in the public and on the council, please be on the lookout for this job advertisement in the next month or two. In addition, we are working to create a request for proposals from stakeholder groups and other organizations that might like to bid on this project. And we look forward to working with community groups and other stakeholders to make sure that this effort is as impactful as possible toward getting services to victims of hate violence, but also preventing hate violence from happening in the first place.
Do you have the 800 number yet assigned, or is that incorporated on the flyer already?
The hotline has not yet been created. We just received the funding, and so that will be rolling out over the next year.
But the flyer I mean, for folks who want to file complaints, the flyer includes our regular number.
Okay.
So the concept behind the hotline funding is not that DFEH will run a crisis hotline, but rather that we will contract with community organizations who are the places where folks are most likely to reach out to. And so we'll be working, Adam and his team will be working to ensure that that funding flows in a way that is most helpful to the people who need it. But certainly our flyer, which is available, I believe, in 13 or 14 languages, has our contact information for folks who do want to contact the government and file a complaint.
So can I just ask protocol wise, if Gabriel and I do write a letter to law enforcement, does that have to come back to the council, or are we authorized to prepare such a letter and then actually get it sent out without it coming back to the council? I don't have a preference one way or the other. I just want to know procedurally how it works.
I don't believe that there is any statutory requirement for the council to vote on a subcommittee to prepare an outreach letter. I think that what you've done is, to my mind, the right approach, which is to ask the council itself to weigh in. I don't know that we need a vote, but it wouldn't hurt to have a vote to authorize the subcommittee to send out the letter, or to ask that the letter be circulated to the entire council if the council would like to send it out as a body. And I'd say that that's up to those folks who are not on the subcommittee to make that call.
I think there may be a little bit more forcefulness to it if it's from the whole council, and if that sort of procedurally requires us to take a gander at the letter in a draft form, I would be happy to do that. And I think it would be a good thing to do.
I'd rather it come from the whole council.
I agree. It should come from the whole council. Okay.
So in that case, this is not a formal rulemaking process, but I think to err on the side of caution, I always am told that I mispronounce that word. It would be helpful to have a vote authorizing the subcommittee to create the draft, bring it back to the full council so that it can be subject to public review as well, since the council needs to meet publicly, and then it will be sent out after that, after approval by the full council.
Okay, let's have that vote.
I'll make that motion. How's that?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Chair Sandoval.
Aye.
Councilmember Brodsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Hong,
Aye.
Councilmember Iglesias,
Aye.
Councilmember Olude,
Aye.
Councilmember Scher, Councilmember Walensky.
Aye.
Great, thank you, everyone. Do we have any public comment? Do we talk about that already on this particular subcommittee? Good. Director Kish, you had a question?
I have one other thing to add, which is some of you may have seen that Governor Newsom made a new appointment to the DFEH. He appointed Becky Monroe to a new role here at the department. And the title, Becky's title will be Deputy Director of Strategic Initiatives and External Affairs. And my expectation is that Becky, who will join us in January, is going to be extremely useful on the efforts of the council and the department to increase awareness of issues around hate violence and remedies for hate violence. Becky was formerly the director of the Fighting Hate and Bias Project at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. She has been the sorry, I'm looking at her list of things. She's worked for the Department of Justice and the Community Relations Service. She actually led that service for a period under the Obama administration. And she was the director of the Stop Hate Project at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. So Becky is someone who brings a wealth of experience and commitment to this particular area, and I think will be a great colleague for the council going forward.
Thank you. We look forward to working with her in January. Rachel, do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next item, which is the update from the Algorithms and Bias Hearing Subcommittee.
Hi, so I'll give that update from that subcommittee. So the subcommittee held a meeting on October 21st, and we discussed a number of things and came up with kind of a work plan, a rough work plan, in which DFH staff is going to take a look at all of the council's regulations to identify places where we might want to revise them to clarify that the FEHA and UNRU apply to algorithms. Secondly, DFEH staff is also going to kind of undertake some research projects about that will inform additional rulemakings with regard to particularly with regard to what other groups are doing on algorithm regulation. And then finally, the committee will come together again to review that information, decide on next steps, including the possibility of having another public hearing sometime down the line. So that's where we are right now. Councilmember Hong, do you want to add anything? Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Iglesias. Do we have any discussion from other council members? Okay. Any public comment?
We did receive one public comment from Brenda Lebsack, and I will circulate it to council.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, then we have our last agenda item regarding additional subcommittee assignments discussion. Any council members have any comments on this particular item? Okay. Any public comments, Rachel?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay. Last item, is there any further comments on any issue that you see, Rachel?
No, there's not.
Okay, I want to thank everybody again for your participation, the public and my fellow council members and Director Kish and Adam Romero and our new colleague Rachel Langston. Looking forward to continue to work with you. We are adjourning this council meeting. It is currently 11:41 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.